All right, welcome back, everyone. Thank you so much. Want to welcome Peter Radovich today from Mirum Pharmaceuticals. Peter is the Chief Operating Officer there at Mirum. And Peter, welcome. I think this is maybe the first time that we've actually met, so in person almost. So great to finally put a face with a name, and I am going to turn it over to you.
Great. Thank you, Cher. Really appreciate it. And thanks to Roberta as well. It's a pleasure to be here and have the opportunity to talk to this group about what Mirum Pharmaceuticals is up to overall and in Alagille syndrome. It's been a really very well organized Congress covering a lot of topics that just wanted to congratulate you all on orchestrating that. It's been very educational for me. So congratulations on that. Just wanted to start out to make a comment that Mirum's products are all, our programs are all in the research and development stage. So they're not approved by the FDA or any health authority as safe and effective for marketing use. They're available under clinical trial or other protocols. And that the presentation here shouldn't be construed as medical advice. That obviously should come from your healthcare provider and doctor. So just to introduce myself a little bit to the crew for the folks who I haven't had a chance to meet. I also joined a new company during the pandemic. I joined Mirum in April 2020. So I can tell you what all my coworkers' two-dimensional profile looks like. Only some of them I can tell you what they look like in 3 dimensions. But it's been great to be at Mirum for over a year. And as part of my role here, I oversee the commercial efforts, as well as the manufacturing or CMC efforts and supply chain, and then corporate development and partnering. I've worked in a number of other companies, a lot of them based in the San Francisco Bay Area, who were small, then became big and sometimes acquired by big companies. I'm a Midwesterner originally, born and raised in Kansas City, so always happy to talk about the middle of the country with anyone that wants to talk about it, but have lived in and around the San Francisco Bay Area for the better part of 2 decades now. My wife and I have 2 little boys, aged 7 and 10, and we love the outdoors as a family. It's a constant effort to burn off their energy, and that effort restarts every 24 hours essentially. But yeah, we use the outdoors to do that. As far as me, I'm really passionate about innovation and the potential of innovation broadly to impact patients' lives. Obviously, I work at Mirum, so I'm excited about the research and development and innovation that Mirum's working on. But quite frankly, I'm the kind of person that gets excited about innovation in general and all the things that are going on that have the potential to impact patients' lives. One of the themes in my career has been working in rare diseases where the industry is not historically focused. Diseases like Alagille, where there's no approved products. Most recently, I spent several years working in another rare genetic disease called sickle cell anemia, which is a genetic disease that impacts your blood. And when I first got involved in that, we were the only company involved. And now it's kind of fun to look back 10 years later and see several companies and several exciting R&D programs going on, which again is something I'm passionate about. And I think that's one way to help bring innovation forward and improve outcomes for patients. So the reason why Mirum exists is to create transformative medicine for rare liver disease. That's really what we seek to do every day when our team comes to work. And we talk about how the voice of the patient and the caregiver drives everything we do at Mirum. So whether we're designing a clinical trial and trying to decide what is a relevant endpoint that patients are going to care about, or a schedule of assessments for that clinical trial, or an educational campaign where we're trying to increase the awareness of a given disease, we really hold ourselves to account to engage closely with patients, as well as listen and hopefully incorporate their feedback in what we're doing. So that's really kind of key to how Mirum operates. So hopefully I gave you a little bit of a sense of our mission and kind of how we try to show up in terms of how we operate and engage. We are focused on high impact, rare liver disease medicines, both for children and adults. I'll give you a little bit more detail on that on our next slide. Mirum is about 125 employees. I think I mentioned before, we're based in Northern California, Foster City, which if you've ever been to the San Francisco airport, it's pretty hard to miss Foster City. You fly over it almost every time you land. And then we also have a team of folks in Switzerland, R&D and commercial folks there. So this gives you a sense of the development programs that are going on at Mirum. We have 4 different programs pursuing 6 different indications. We've really focused on indications where there's high unmet medical need and limited treatment options. Substantially all of the indications on this list don't have an approved product or a limited number of approved products. So with our efforts, we're really seeking to try to make an impact in these areas where there's not been a lot of focus historically. The most important program at the company, and obviously the program relevant for this group that I'll spend the rest of the time talking about, is the Mirim program for Alagille syndrome. As you can see by the bar here, this program is through the clinical trial stage and into the registration stage. So what that means is the company has submitted what's called a new drug application to the United States Food and Drug Administration, and that application was accepted earlier this year for priority review. And we were assigned a PDUFA date, which I think, as you heard earlier, is a date, the target action date for the FDA. And that PDUFA date is at the end of September 29th. So I think the message there is we expect to be able to give you an update no later than the end of September on the status and potential approval of Mirim in Alagille syndrome. There are also clinical trials for Mirim ongoing in PFIC, as well as biliary atresia. Volixibat, as you can probably tell from the stem, the end of the name is another ASBT inhibitor, and that's focused in diseases that primarily impact adults that are listed here. And then the company recently entered into a partnership with a French company, Vivet, who are expert in liver-directed gene therapy. So we're really excited by this science and excited about the opportunity to potentially address PFIC3 and PFIC2 with gene therapy. And these programs are still preclinical, not yet in clinical trials, but excited about the future there. So I'd like to pivot and talk more about Mirim and Alagille syndrome. So Mirim is apical sodium-dependent bile acid transporter inhibitor. Try saying that a few times in front of the mirror quickly. It's quite a mouthful. And in fact, if you look in the literature, you'll see sometimes this long string of words sometimes has the word ileal apical sodium-dependent bile acid transporter inhibitor. And in those iterations, you'll see the acronym, instead of picking up the ASBT, pick up the IBAT, referencing where in the anatomy the receptor is. In this context, they're really synonymous. So you can think of ASBT and IBAT as the same. And the picture on the right describes how this ASBT inhibition approach works. And what Mirim is doing is it's inhibiting a transporter, which is called ASBT or IBAT. And that transporter is responsible for transporting bile acids in your small intestine across into recirculation or enterohepatic recirculation back to your liver. So this is the body's kind of natural recycling mechanism for bile. Bile, it turns out, is very expensive in terms of energy expenditure for your body to make. So we have this ability to recycle bile acids that occurs 5 or more times a day. And what this strategy of ASBT does is blocks the recycling mechanism or blocks the reuptake, which then pushes the bile down into the large intestine and then out into feces. So we can actually see in clinical trials increased fecal bile acid excretion with Mirim therapy. And so this strategy of blocking the recycling mechanism or blocking the reuptake to move bile acids out of the body has been applied in diseases like Alagille syndrome, where one of the problems is too many bile acids or cholestasis. So that's a little bit about how this medicine works. Mirim is minimally absorbed and it's an orally administered liquid. So I have a little picture here that you see on the bottom left of the bottle. This is the bright stock. Of course, there'll be a label on the bottle if with an approval of maralixibat. But if you've ever worked with children's Advil or children's Tylenol, it's pretty similar. There's a dosage dispenser. Your doctor would prescribe a quantity of milliliters to administer once per day. And then you would draw that up here and administer it. It's a grape flavored, sweetened liquid. And then it's also minimally absorbed, which I think is an important feature to emphasize. And those of you who are interested in the chemistry pieces, it's kind of interesting because most oral drugs are not minimally absorbed. In fact, that's the exact opposite of what you're trying to achieve, because you need the drug to get out of the small intestine and absorbed into the blood and distributed around the body to the tissue you're trying to get it to do the business the drug needs to do. In this case, this medicine was designed to never be absorbed, or minimally absorbed, I should say. But the reason for that is because the business of maralixibat is the ASPT transporter here in the small intestine, which then limits the potential liabilities of a molecule. One of the other unique things about maralixibat is it has a large database. I think compared to other rare disease products I've worked on at the registration stage, we didn't, this is quite a remarkable number of patients who have been exposed to the drug. 1,600 individuals have received maralixibat in clinical trials, and then 84 children in clinical trials for Alagille syndrome, some treated for more than 5 years. So that gives us the opportunity to look at long-term efficacy and safety of maralixibat. And I'm certainly not going to spend much time on this slide, mostly because I myself have learned a tremendous amount about all the points covered here. But suffice to say, Alagille syndrome is, needless to say to this group, a serious disease, no approved treatment options. There can be severe pruritus, and many, as we heard earlier in the transplant session, many of the transplants can be driven by the symptoms. And this is the same data you saw earlier from the GALA group. About 41% of patients in that cohort survived to their 18th birthday with their native liver. So we from our perspective, we think hopefully an opportunity to improve on this. And then a summary of maralixibat in Alagille syndrome. So I mentioned the second point, that the new drug application was filed with FDA, and we expect to have an update in terms of a decision by the end of September. Maralixibat was also granted breakthrough designation by the FDA, and this is a designation that gets granted for investigational medicines where the available evidence represents a substantial improvement over the available standard of care therapies. And the idea is to assign this designation to investigational medicines to then provide more resource and focus to support the development of those. And so that was an important designation for maralixibat. And the new drug application was based on a pivotal clinical trial. And so pivotal, you might see that term used from time to time. That really means the clinical trial whose data really represents the primary basis of the new drug application. Of course, all of those 1,600 patients and 84 Alagille patients are included in the NDA, but this particular clinical trial is the one that's considered pivotal. And the endpoints that were looked at there where improvement was observed were bile acids, consistent with the mechanism of action I showed you a couple slides ago. Also looked at pruritus through what's called ItchRO, which is a observer, and this is a caregiver reported itch that's entered twice a day over time, over the entire course of the clinical trial. And then a clinician scratch score, which is a scratch evaluated by the clinician during clinical visits during the clinical trial. Also, improvements in xanthoma and the height Z-score were observed in this clinical trial. On the safety side, I think always important to look carefully at the safety of new medicines. The most common treatment emergent adverse events that were observed in this clinical trial were diarrhea and abdominal pain. The incidence of those were the highest in the first 4 weeks of therapy, and probably or likely related to the mechanism of maralixibat, which is placing more bile acids in patients' large intestines in their colon, which can be irritating sometimes and lead to mild, in this case, lead to mild to moderate diarrhea and abdominal cramping. Fortunately, these were transient and resolved without action, and patients didn't have to be discontinued because of this. But I think it is something that's important that patients are aware of with ASBT inhibition. And finally, and I think Dr. Kamath mentioned this point on the bottom, that we hope in the future to be able to update you with this long-term outcome data that's available with maralixibat over 5 years of treatment in Alagille syndrome, where there are analyses ongoing comparing the experience with maralixibat to natural history cohorts. So that hopefully would be coming soon in the future in terms of new information. So one of the questions that comes up is if FDA approves maralixibat, how can I get access to it? And I think the high level message that I want to leave you all with is Miram is committed to providing access to patients who the patient or the caregiver and the doctor decide this is something that they're interested in pursuing. And I recognize that that's a broad statement, and there's a lot of details, as this group knows very well, that sit underneath that. And so we'd like to introduce you to the Miram Access Plus program. And this is really the program that we hope will deliver on all the details associated with getting access to new medicine for you if maralixibat is approved by the FDA. And this program was developed in collaboration with the Mirim team and as well as several caregivers of patients. So I wanted to take a moment to run through some of the important features of this program for you to start to familiarize you with it. So one of the key points is this program will have fully dedicated program staff. In fact, many of our staff are pediatric nurses who have experience taking care of pediatric patients with a variety of diseases. And one of the things we heard from caregivers when we were working on this is, gosh, we talked to a lot of different subspecialists, a lot of different insurance companies, pharmacists, and I constantly am retelling my child's story over and over again. So the point here with fully dedicated is it'll just be one person you build a relationship with, and you won't have to retell your story over and over. A critical issue I think that this group is also very familiar with can be insurance coverage. And in some cases, out-of-pocket and financial support. This program will certainly be able to help with insurance coverage, supporting the administrative aspects of that review occurring, as well as in some cases being able to provide financial support. So if those are concerns, it's certainly something that this program can help with. We would also have pharmacist access, health education. Recognizing this group here is very well educated, but we expect there'll of course be newly diagnosed families that come into this program, and we'd love to provide some health education as well as, quite frankly, refer them to the Alliance and the great educational materials that are already out there for families. And with that, this program will be integrated on mobile platforms if that's a preferred communication technique. And then we hope to make it convenient, so maralixibat will be shipped directly to your home. And then one of the other points we kind of heard about when we were talking with caregivers is the refill management can be kind of challenging, that you're kind of always having to chase down refills of the medicines your children are on now. So that in this case will be MAP's job. They will be doing proactive refill management. So turning to outside of the United States, and I'll just briefly cover this because I know there are some folks that participate in this meeting from outside of the United States. Miram is committed to ensuring worldwide access to maralixibat. We're in conversations with the European Medicines Agency, who are similar to the FDA in the sense that they're the health authority for countries in the European Union. We've also announced partnerships in 2 geographies, in China and Israel, with Cambridge and Neopharm. So we're really looking for partners who are experts in their local geography, but they're also passionate about rare disease, and they have demonstrate to us that they have close links with physicians and healthcare professionals, regulators, patient communities, payers, because we think that's always important, but I think that's even more important in rare diseases that oftentimes people don't know a lot about. And there are other discussions ongoing in other territories around the world that we'll be able to update you on in the future. And then another a mechanism that's available now for patients with Alagille syndrome is the Alagille syndrome expanded access program. So this is a program that's open now. Some of you may be familiar with expanded access programs. These are sometimes called compassionate use programs. And these are really the bridge between when the clinical trials are completed, but before a marketing approval exists. So that to kind of cover that gap in time. So this is available for Alagille patients with clinically significant pruritus. If in the countries are listed below here, several European countries, US, Canada, Australia. If this is of interest to you and your family, the first step, of course, is to discuss it with your physician. And then any requests would come through the physician to the email addresses listed here. So I want to spend the last few minutes of my presentation kind of moving beyond the medicine and not talking about new drugs or research and development, and just talk about some of the initiatives we have at Mirum to partner with the community to try to support the education and awareness of Alagille syndrome more broadly. So the first initiative that Miram has been working on is the what we call a disease state awareness effort, where we're working through journals and the internet to try to raise awareness of Alagille syndrome in the broader community. I mean, obviously, this disease is, there's several centers of expertise, but this is thinking beyond those and trying to teach them about Alagille syndrome and play a role in, hopefully with that increased awareness and increased knowledge, improve the time to and rate of diagnosis. We've heard many stories. I know there can be variable diagnostic journeys, and unfortunately some that can be quite long for families. So we'd love to, through some of these efforts, increase awareness in the broader community so that hopefully in the future those can be shorter, as well as educate on the disease. And then we've heard from caregivers that there can sometimes be a disconnect between the full burden of pruritus that the caregiver sees and then the clinician sees. So try to educate around that point as well. And building on that pruritus point, I just wanted to kind of summarize some of the quotes. Of course, these are all de-identified quotes, but that we've heard from caregivers over the last year about one particular issue, which is tracking pruritus over time. So we have one caregiver at the top here talking about how they're so stressed that they can't remember what day it was, let alone, when someone's asking you what happened 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago with your child's itch, what that looked like. Another caregiver who's been trying to record the child's itch on the iPhone, but it's hard to track. And then when you're in with the doctor, it's overwhelming. There's a lot of questions. So sometimes it gets lost and not communicated. Another caregiver who I thought kind of a creative approach to take pictures and utilize the date and timestamp on those so they can show that to the doctor when they're in for their visits. And then another perspective here of a family where they've not been able to see their caregiver during the pandemic, and then that it's only a couple of days a year, and that caregiver's son has episodic flares that occur sporadically. So they kind of said to us, being able to show the day-to-day symptoms over time would be really big. So we kind of took some of this feedback at Miram and went back and brainstormed and thought, is there something we can do at Miram in partnership with the community to try to bring something forward, to play some small role in helping address this need that we heard communicated to us. And so with that, we worked on developing an app, actually. So we're launching a new app called Itch Check. And this is a tool that will be available shortly in the next several weeks on the App Store. And it's available to track your itch and share that with your healthcare team over time. So what you can do on this app is log daily itch scores, morning and afternoon. You can add notes and upload pictures. You can track height and weight changes and compare that with the progress against growth percentile charts. There's some kind of cool reporting features in here where you can view and see your results kind of over time and what the picture looked like 1 month ago, 3 months ago. And then, you can export this to PDF, and so that if you choose to and you want to, you can also share this with your healthcare team. And so I actually have, before I close up here, I have a short 1-minute video or 1 or 2 minute video that I'd love to show you to give you a little bit more of a demo of this. So let's see if I'm savvy enough to pull this off. You know what? Not sure it's going to work here, unfortunately. Screen failing has failed to start. Okay. Well, you know, we may have to distribute the video links separately, but hopefully the still pictures give you a sense of it, and we'll distribute the video link separately so folks can peruse that at their convenience. So I just wanted to finish to say thank you so much to everyone for your attention today. Thanks again to Cher and Roberta for the invitation. It truly is a pleasure here, and you know, every time we interact, to have the opportunity to hear from you and hear feedback about how we can partner with you. And we're certainly committed to advancing maralixibat for patients and ensuring we continue to understand the needs of the community and what's most important.
Thank you so much, Peter. We do have time for a couple of questions. There's one in the chat from Amanda. Are the weight and height percentiles specific to Alagille patients?
Yeah, it's a great question. Right now, not yet. I think once it was discussed in the earlier session with the GALA registry and them working on Alagille specific height and weight percentiles. And I think once that's published and available, we would you know, our team could take that back and see if we can get that uploaded. But I think right now it's based on the general height and weight percentiles from I think published by the CDC.
Okay.
But that would be a good, thank you for the suggestion. That'd be a good one to add on in the future.
Any other questions? Okay, we will distribute that video after. Oh, wait. Oh, what's the best barbecue in Kansas City?
Oh, okay, that's a good one. You know, that is a really good one. And I think there's a place, they changed their name, but it's called Oklahoma Joe's, and they've changed it to Joe's KC. So yeah, Joe's. So yeah, you know it. When I was in high school here many, many years ago, that was just in a gas station, and you could always get in. But then I think in the late 90s, Anthony Bourdain came and put it on the list of places to eat before you die. And it was right next to El Bulli in Spain, and which is, like, you know, it's great, but it's not that great. But that just unfortunately created a hour line every day at that location. So it's hard to get into now, but it is my favorite.
All right. Thank you so much, Peter. We will distribute that video after this, and really appreciate you. Appreciate your time. We will take a break right now and convene back here at 4:15 to hear from Dr. Kamesh Surendran. And you can, in the meantime, go check out the booths and the lounges accessible through the lobby of the main platform. So thank you again, Peter, and thank you everyone for joining. Bye.
Thanks.
Thank you.